active. So please do it there, and we'll see those comments and we'll respond to them. And I wanted to welcome Dr. Sean Wise. How you doing today, Sean?
I'm great. The kids have been back in school for 5 days. That's 5 days of freedom.
Yeah, 5 days. Wow. And hopefully it'll stick this time and we won't have to retreat and that we'll have things under control. And today we're talking about self employment as a career option, but I wanted to talk a little bit about you. You helped launch Dragon's Den and Shark Tank. You are the host of The Naked Entrepreneur. You're the professor of entrepreneurship at Ryerson University. Last time I checked, you've written 5 books. You can correct me if I'm wrong now, it might be more. You've done some amazing things. You've seen over 30,000 venture pitches. You're the founder of 100 Steps to Startup. You're one of your latest venture. I'm sure I'm missing a whole bunch of stuff, but welcome. And I'm sure, tell us what I missed.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you reading Wikipedia and getting all the highlights. I've been an entrepreneur since I was 13, and I've always wanted the same thing. I thought entrepreneurship, it empowers everyone. So once I had already made my success, once I had made my millions, I wanted to learn how to teach other people to do it and how to allow other people to seize their destiny. And so I've been an entrepreneur a number of times. I've been an investor for over 20 years. I've taught in this section. I've worked on a couple of TV shows. I've even had one bestseller and a bunch of non-bestsellers. But I've spent the last 30 years really focused on helping entrepreneurs to fail faster, to learn better, to have better outcomes. And I say entrepreneurs because although most of my time is spent in the world of startups, the entrepreneurship covers small business and family business and side hustles. It's a much bigger scope than I think people know. It's not just me knowing my own work. I've spent a lot of time as a mentor and as an investor with a group called Ryerson Futures. We've done a number of deals that have gone very well. And it's given me a real perspective on how entrepreneurs really go from 0 to 100. But Craig, where I want to start today isn't all this positive stuff. I'm very, very concerned. And I can see on your face you're asking, why is he concerned? And I'm very concerned because for the last year, I've watched my students, my graduate students, those who have just finished college and university, I've watched them hit a hard brick wall. I've watched as all the co-ops have disappeared. I've watched as all the first-time jobs have closed up. I've watched as people's careers have been sabotaged by a pandemic. And last week, an article appeared in the Globe and Mail, and it talked about a dire forecast for graduates and for people who are entering the workforce. And so I did a little research, and it finds out that I'm not the only one worrying about this. The International Monetary Fund has just come out with a huge study that comes up with some of these numbers. Right? In 2020, 7 million young Americans were looking for first-time jobs. Because they won't get them, they will be missing earnings for the first 10 years of their life, meaning they'll make less over that period of time. Stats Canada flagged this as a huge issue last June. In May, the unemployment rate for under 30 in Canada was almost 30%. All of these lower earnings, all of these non-starting of jobs, one specific, I have a student, a former student named Emily. She's just called me. She's just spent the year with 200 applications and didn't get one. She was a Dean's List student, an entrepreneur, hands-on at school, can't get started. So she's stuck in her mom's house. She's stuck living at home, not launching. She's stuck with her career. And we know that this leads to bad outcomes. Prior times this has happened, we've seen rises in substance abuse and suicide, rises in the number of people who can never move out, never start a family. And that's really freaking me out. And if it's not freaking you out, you should think about it. The group that is currently under 30 is larger than the baby boomer population. And they're all coming on an ice age of employment. But the good news behind all of this is that there is a way through it, right? Because all of this has happened before. All of this has happened before. Most recently in the 1990s in Japan, an entire generation was locked out of work for 10 years. Because of their recessionary economy and the austerity measures being put in place, people didn't get those first jobs. So they never went on to those middle jobs. So they never went on to those big jobs. Instead, they stayed at home and they work for Uber or Starbucks. Having turned 40, they're now moving out. They have no possibility of buying a home, and very few of them are getting married and starting families. This went on and is still being seen 20 years later. More recently, this happened in Greece. In the middle of 2014, 2015, Greece's austerity measures froze out the youngest members of their economy. Almost 50% of people wanting jobs under the age of 25 couldn't get them. That was the largest across Europe. So we've seen this. And so I'm very concerned for my students who are graduating, for people who are trying to think about employment, people who've been laid off. I'm very concerned if these new opportunities don't present themselves. So I've thought a lot about it and talked to my students about what it means for them. And I think it means one thing more than anything else. I think my mother, who taught me this all those years ago, is still correct today. I think that the future is going to require you to take the bull by the horns, to grab the reins of the horses, for you to follow whatever metaphor you like, but to put you in the center of your future. In entrepreneurship, we call this the internal locus of control. You think that problems happen and you can solve them. And that's a vital thing to understand. Because Craig, if you don't think you can solve the problem, then you won't get involved. You won't ever get started. And so the internal locus of control, which says if it's going to be, it's up to me, says I'm the one who has to make the change. And so today it's very important to be taking that change seriously. If by 2025, more than 50% of the economy will not be employed, and if the majority of those people are under the age of 30, then maybe you need to start your entrepreneurial journey sooner. I don't think we can rely on the government or employment or lifetime employment to get us through this next big push. So a side hustle is a small business that you start on the side of the rest of your life. You can start it while you're a full-time mom. You can start it while you're a full-time student. You can start it while you're a full-time employment. By definition, it's a small, encapsulated, usually starts as a project and then moves into a small business. And then maybe if it goes really well, that becomes your business. But more and more people feel they need this. 4 in 10 Americans now have a side hustle generating revenue. 70% of these people did it because they need money. 70% of side hustles because they need money. And that's not short-term money, that's long-term. They're afraid that their workplace will lay them off next. And if they don't have a backup plan, they're in trouble. Or they want to buy a house in Toronto and they know that you need more than just one income to do that. But my students and most people are very daunted by the task around entrepreneurship. They have all of these excuses. I don't know how to do it. I don't have enough money. I'm too young. I'm too old. I don't even have a good idea. I don't know what step to take first. I don't know what step to take next. But Craig, what if I told you that that's no longer true? What if I told you that these are true excuses, meaning the facts that these are based on are not true anymore? And so they're not reasons to hold you back. And that's one of the things I hope our participants today walk away with. And that is, it's okay to have these fears, but it's not okay to let them stop you from doing what needs to be done, right? The grocery store doesn't take fear checks. They only take money. And so if you're going to make your future better, you're going to have to do it. And that's the greatest lesson I can tell anyone. Willpower conquers fear. The best way to overcome fear is to get started, to take a step in the right direction. Then you won't be so afraid. People always ask me after Shark Tank and Dragon's Den, what about all those crazy people who come and pitch things that make no sense, like the exercise bike that's also a lazy boy? Aren't they just crazy or stupid or bad? How do you respect them? And I always say the same thing. I respect people who get off the couch and fail more than I respect people who never get off the couch and criticize the people who fail. Not a polite answer, but it usually shuts them up. True failure is only not starting. In the 21st century, entrepreneurship is about learning, and we learn by failing faster. These excuses we're going to talk about in the coming 20 minutes, they just don't hold water anymore. And if they're holding you back, you've got to stop. The number one thing people are freaked out by is, how do I do it? How? Well, here's how. We are going to walk you through in the next 20 minutes a 7-step process to creating a side hustle. This process comes from a course that we give called New Venture Creation, or as the kids call it today, how to start a startup. But it works for a side hustle, it works for a small business. These are the opening steps that every entrepreneur should do. And the best news is that they cost very little. And you can do them with your time. You can do them when it's convenient. You can do them over Zoom. You can do them tomorrow. Hell, you can do them today, right? If you're not at Ryerson, you can also access this content at 100stepstostartup.com. We'll talk a little bit about a promo code at the end, so make sure you stay tuned. So the 7 steps to starting a side hustle. Step 1, we always start with the customer. Craig, why is it wrong to start with the product, not the customer?
Because you have a good chance of building something no one wants.
Oh my gosh, Craig, that's the right answer. Thank you so much. Because when you put product first, you end up building the prettiest tractor that nobody wants to buy. That's what happens on Dragon's Den and Shark Tank more than anything else. People sit in their basements, create a beautiful product to themselves, and then they go and show it to the customers and nobody wants any of it. So what we've learned in the 21st century is to flip that model, to put the customer first. And not just any customer, to put the customer that you are. So Craig and I are both customers who have beards. All right, so we are over 40-year-old men with beards. So maybe we have beard problems, but you only target for your side hustle, for your future business, for your startup. You only target those that you are a member of. Why? Because if you're a member of a group, you have access. Craig and I know other men with beards. If you are a member of a group, you have credibility. If I say to Craig, hey, have you tried this new gel for your beard? And I don't have a beard, well, you're not really going to take me seriously. But more importantly, you have insights. Having had a beard for a number of years, you understand what beard wearing requires. And of course, you have a beard, so it's more likely you're passionate about beards, you're interested in beards. Now, I'm being silly about beards, but this is true about ballet, this is true about single momhood, this is true about working with doctors. Whatever you're passionate about, whatever you are a member of that group, whatever you have insights on, that's the focus of your business, not the product. So step 1, choose a group that you are a member of. Step 2, find a problem that this group identifies as worth solving. So go through a list because you're a member of the group. You already know what the group thinks. What are the biggest problems? So having a beard, it gets scratchy. My wife doesn't want me to kiss her. I need to shave it, blah, blah, blah. Identify those problems. Make a list. But don't focus on the problems that are nice to have. Focus on those that are need to have solutions for. Focus on those that people are already spending money to solve. Focus on those that people are spending resources for a solution that's more inefficient than what you could do. You want to focus on problems that have what we call in academia the inelasticity of demand. If you are on Mars, where the Perseverance, where the rover landed yesterday, right? If you're on Mars, the number one thing you can't do without is oxygen. So the most inelastic product on Mars is oxygen. The least is probably what you don't need, cable TV. You probably don't have a lot of signal up there. So you want something that's a need, not a want. You want something that people would pay for, and you know that because they're already buying something inferior or they're doing it by hand. You know, we have Spellcheck now, but Craig and I are both old enough to know that there was a Spellcheck before computers. Craig, do you remember what that Spellcheck was?
My mom.
Yeah. For generations, moms were the Spellcheck of our essays. Now, I don't know about your mom, but mine was really tough. And so she would make me sit there and she circled line by line the red answers almost till I was crying. And it wasn't convenient because she only did it when she had time. So I had to work around her schedule. And it wasn't nice because I always felt terrible. Then along came a floppy disk with Spellcheck on it. Yes, Spellcheck was once the standalone software. And it only did the first 1,000 words. But because 90% of the human population only uses 1,000 words, it was good enough. And even better, it never yelled at me. And even better, it was available when I wanted it. It was 10 times better a solution than putting up with my mother. And that's the kind of problems you want to be solving. I'm already solving it painfully with my mother. So if you want to charge me $100 for the software, that's way better. So the second step is to focus on a problem that the group that you're a member of has and that they're already solving. The second reason it's important that they're already solving it is we call those people early adopters. Early adopters have the problem, they know they have the problem, and they're already taking action. So if you remember Rogers' curve of adoption, the early adopters come right after the innovators, right after the geeks come this group of people, right? And for them to adopt, it has to be exponentially better than non-adoption, right? Step 3, you don't sit at home for 50 days and write a 50-page business plan. Business plans are dead. Business planning is not. Let me say that again. Business plans are dead. Business plans are not. Today, we don't use a business plan. We use a lean canvas, this pretty colorful document. It's a giant piece of paper. And in it, you put various pieces of information. But unlike a business plan, which is static, which is when it's finished, you hit print, a lean canvas or a business model canvas, what we call these things, is dynamic. It changes every week. And so instead of investing in a business plan and spending hundreds of hours to write a whole bunch of stuff that no one's going to read and that no one wants to read, instead of that, what we have is a dynamic tool that we can use to walk us through a process of learning. This is called the lean canvas, and it's used in the following way. Once you know the problem that your customers are having, you start to flesh out the rest of it. How would I describe them? What value do they need? What would be an unfair advantage? And you do this all with your best guesses. Then you turn each guess into a hypothesis. You turn each hypothesis into an experiment that you can run with those early adopters you have. And you learn. Week after week, you learn that they want the device to be blue, not pink. That women over 30 don't want it, only women under 30 want it. You learn what channels work, how to get to your customers, and you do it in a scientific process, what we call the 21st century entrepreneurship, hypothesis-driven entrepreneurship. You'll also hear it called the lean startup or agile development. You'll also hear it called design thinking. They're all part of this movement to become better entrepreneurs by failing fast. Step 4, you go out, as I described, interviewing dozens of group members. You still haven't built anything. You're merely talking to customers. You don't need an investor. You need hundreds of hours of FaceTime with your customers. And over Zoom is a great way to do it because your customers, not your investors, are the ones you truly want to satisfy, right? An investor only has one opinion. A customer has thousands because there's thousands of customers. An investor only has one Twitter account to help you with. Customers have thousands. You want to test assumptions and work with them so that they want to buy it. This is a process of customer discovery. And it's a process of face-to-face interviews over coffee where you're kicking the tires and sharing your idea. And now, Craig, I can hear you. But how can I share my idea? Someone's going to steal it. That is an old notion proven long untrue. If all you have is an idea that can be stolen, then you have nothing at all. Okay? It is how you solve the problem, not solving the problem, that is proprietary, that is monetizable. So talking about what you want to work on isn't the same of writing code. Knowing that Google wants to sort the internet didn't make the algorithm. It's the algorithm they created that made Google. So we go through a process today when you're creating a side hustle of meeting with the customers and understanding what it is that's driving their needs. Then, and only then, do we create a prototype. But this isn't a prototype that works. This isn't a prototype that's brilliant. This is a prototype that is just a little bit the side of, I can still use it. It is a basic thing. A minimum viable product is the term we give it. It only does one thing, check the first 1,000 words in the dictionary. It's viable. It actually does check those 1,000 words. And it is a product. I can give it to someone. You must have these three things when you create your prototype. But the first prototype for Tinder, the MVP for the Tinder dating app, was not a piece of software, was not an app in the App Store. It was speed dating. They wanted to test the assumption that people would be more comfortable talking to potential partners if they already knew that partner thought they were cute. That rejection is the biggest reason why people don't start to talk to other people. And so Tinder's real power isn't getting kids lucky, it's lowering rejection in the hunt for a partner. And so the MVP for Tinder was just speed dating. You only got connected with those people who wanted to be connected with you. And they used that to create the idea of Tinder. Keep in mind that you still haven't spent tons of money. My students create MVPs using the 100 steps to startup for under $50. Sometimes it's a web page, sometimes it's a smoke test, right? The MVP is not lots of features done poorly. It's one core feature done extremely well. The first spelling check software only did 1,000 words, but it did it, and it did it 10 times better than my mother. You have lots of ways to do this. This is an example of an MVP for a car, right? If you look at the bottom using this theoretical way of looking at it, the car gets you from point A to B faster than your feet. So the skateboard gets you faster, and then the scooter, then the bicycle, then the electric scooter, then the car. As opposed to the top way, which is you would build a whole car only to find out that people don't want one. There are lots of ways to do MVP testing. There's lots of ways to test your side hustle before you quit your job, before you sell your children to science, before you spend thousands and tens of thousands of money, right? You just want something that you can use to engage with potential customers so they can validate your business model. They can validate the concept of how they will get it, where they will get it, how much they will pay for it. The last step is, now that you have your MVP, you will go into the market and you will show it to your early adopters. You will work with them to figure out what comes next. You will work with them to ensure it's something you can purchase. Then you get ready to go to market formally, right? But along the way, you begin to iterate. The key for our 21st century entrepreneurship is innovation through iteration. So the first prototype only does 1,000 words, then it does 2,000 words, then it does 2,000 French words, then it does X, then Y. You want to move slowly so that you learn all along. The idea I'm trying to convey at the heart of this new methodology is we take an idea, and to convert it to an opportunity, we create a hypothesis, we create a testable MVP, we take it to the market. Where we succeed, we keep moving forward. Where we are wrong, we learn and pivot back. Perhaps we have the wrong customer segment. Perhaps we have the wrong core feature. Perhaps we have the wrong sales model, the wrong channel. The idea is you're wrong. You know you're wrong, but you have a scientific way to make it better through a process. And that's what's happening every time you pivot. When you learn not to sell to doctors, but instead learn to sell to dentists, that's a successful pivot. But you might have to first fail to sell to doctors. It's this idea of failing faster in an organized way that makes the side hustle less risky than ever. The 8th step I throw in just for fun. We like to stop and celebrate every success, first revenue, first sales, first law, anything you can. Being an entrepreneur is really hard. You've gotta stop and smell the roses when those roses bloom. So step 8 should be, celebrate. What are you celebrating? Well, you've reached the first of the many milestones ahead of you, right? Before you can grow a $1 billion business, you have to first have a business that's profitable. And before you can have a business that's profitable, you first have to find a solution that people are willing to pay for. When we formalize this, we call it the hunt for problem solution fit, the hunt for product market fit, and the quest to scale. The pink is the first stage, the one we've been talking about, where you find a customer that you want to serve, you find a solution that's exponentially better, you test that it's sellable. Then you start to move to how to make it efficient, how to move from costing $100 per sale to costing 10 cents. And once you've mastered that, once you have a business model where all the assumptions are known, well, then you can start growing and franchising and scaling up. That's really it. I want to finish today with talking about just two things, things that I think are very important to hear from someone who's been there and done that, someone who's been working in this field for decades. And that's that there are some myths that have now gone away, that since 2010 no longer exist, when the lean startup and all this new stuff started to happen, right? Entrepreneurs are neither born, they're not made, it's neither. You choose to be an entrepreneur. It's not science, it's not an art, it's a practice, like meditation or riding a bike. The more you do it, the better you become. You do it with an open heart, a resilient learning, and you keep growing. Entrepreneurs are gamblers. That's total BS. Gambling means betting when you don't know the odds, right? Gambling is going to Vegas. If I have a choice to spend $1,000 on me in a business or $1,000 in Vegas, I will always bet on me. The only lottery ticket I ever needed was me. And that's what entrepreneurs know. They're not gamblers. They invest in themselves, right? They're young. There's a lot of myths out there. There's no age for entrepreneurship. There's no correlation whatsoever. There are lots of 60-year-old successes and there's lots of 20-year-old successes. The young lady who founded Bumble became the world's youngest self-made billionaire, I believe, 3 or 4 days ago. She started at, what, 25? As a side hustle. Back to the excuses. Well, you can't give me these excuses. I can't afford to start it. When I started as a venture capitalist in 1997 in New York City, it cost $5 million to launch a startup selling jewelry. For $50 in a Shopify account, I could generate just as many sales in a weekend. I didn't need to spend $5 million in 3 years. So the cost is no longer a barrier. It doesn't cost millions to test your idea. It costs $50. There used to be this whole idea that you had to come to Toronto or Calgary or New York or Silicon Valley. That's all crap too. The world is becoming geoagnostic. If you can sell online, you can sell anywhere. This idea that I only know a handful of people and no one I know knows how to code or no one I know knows the technology I need, it's also BS. Just Google founder startup dating. There are lots of online dating sites that aren't interested in marriage. They're interested in partnerships of business. And you can use the same Tinder-like concepts to find a co-founder. And they can be in Estonia or New Zealand or Chile. Okay? There's founders everywhere. I don't have the ability to run a business. I've just shown you that's not true. And I don't know how. Well, if you don't know how, you can learn. You can go to 100 Steps to Startup. You could go online. You could take a course at Ryerson. I want to leave you with this thought because I'd like to spend the rest of the time chatting. I believe entrepreneurs change the world, but I also believe we all have the potential to be an entrepreneur. But you do need to make that choice yourself. You have to have the courage to start. You have to have the willpower to persevere. And you have to learn from other people that have come before you, have this path. But the chance to make your own destiny, the chance to not be in the unemployment ice age, it really does come to you. It's up to you to be a entrepreneur no more. If you don't want to ask a question live, here is my personal email address. We have a promo code that Craig is going to share. If you want any of the information found in this, or you have a question, please feel free to reach out. Or if you need the promo code and you don't hear it in the end of this, we will share it with you through email. Go ahead, Craig. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Sean. That was great. I really appreciate it. The first question we have here is usually the first question. Can we get access to the slides?
Yes.
Okay, we'll make that happen. The next one here we have, keep the questions coming, people. Thank you. I've made a few game prototypes and I've been getting publishers interested in it. Is it healthy to work with publishers prematurely as they split more from the profit?
Okay.
Thanks.
So this is a question not about game development so much as is what's the best way to go to market. So my students ask me this all the time. Should I, on day one of graduation, Go and start a startup, or should I go work for a Fortune 500? Contrary to what you think, I think you should go work for the Fortune 500. By watching how they do things, you will see many more opportunities that you can exploit as an entrepreneur. So if you want to disrupt the accounting field, spend 5 years as an accountant. If you want to disrupt education, come from 5 years in that. You're a game developer. So as much as I want to tell you to go on Kickstarter and do it all yourself, there's a lot to learn about game development that isn't about coding. And working with a publisher on your first title might give you access to some of that knowledge at a less expensive cost than doing it on your own and fail. So if you have something that's interesting, I would work with a big game publisher, and I would accept that you're going to make less money in the short term, but the learning, the understanding from people who have been there and done that will far outweigh in the long run any short-term losses.
The next question we have here is, do you need to know people, connections to be successful?
So yes, you do need to know people to be successful, but you don't need to know people before this minute in time. What do I mean? If you want to be successful as an entrepreneur, the people you need to know is other entrepreneurs, other people in the ecosystem. And the way you do that is by engaging. When we used to have in-person events, I would tell all my students to go and volunteer. Go and volunteer for TorontoStarts. Go and volunteer for Startup Canada. Because while you're being an usher, you'll meet lots of people. And those are the connections you're looking for. The connections aren't because your dad knows someone from college. That can't rely on that. And who knows if you even have that. What you can rely on is yourself. So yes, connections are important. And yes, you need to build those connections no matter when you want to start. But you can do that, especially today in a digital age where everything is remote. You can volunteer for TorontoStarts. You can help out at a venture capitalist's dinner event. You can use the I'm a student learning, even if you're not enrolled at a post-secondary institution, to get yourself into an event that you maybe can't afford, right? And those are all ways to build the connections that you may not have. So yes, you do need connections to succeed, but no, you don't need any prior to starting.
Yeah, and things like last night we had investor speed dating and open mic. Show up and start networking, talking to people. They were all sharing LinkedIn, and you talk to investors and other entrepreneurs. That kind of stuff is free. You just show up. So get involved. We have next question here from Eva. I run an online lifestyle magazine. How do I respond to brands and advertisers who currently say they don't have a budget because of COVID, etc.? How to negotiate better and secure more paid partnerships?
Well, I always think that Dale Carnegie is still the first and last person on this. So Dale wrote a book 100 years ago called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And in the book, he basically says, no one cares about you, they only care about themselves. So if you've got to sell someone something, you've got to be more interested in why they buy than why you're selling it. And the number one problem that I find entrepreneurs when they go to sell their wonderful product is they don't focus on the customer's problem. So a brand still needs to have eyeballs. A brand still needs to be top of mind. But maybe they're moving their budget from websites and digital content to something else. And so you need to look at what they're spending and understand what's changing so that you can fulfill that unmet need. You can't just keep selling something that they don't want.
Yeah, it's a good point. Recently, I don't know if you've seen this, but Elon Musk was quoted as saying, if you need encouragement, don't become an entrepreneur. Do you agree? And, does the same thing apply for starting a business, or is that just for, those people who really want to scale madly?
So what he's really saying is a little more deep than that. He's talking about what the concept of the adversity quotient. So we have an intelligence quotient, we have an emotional intelligence quotient, we have something called an adversity quotient. It's basically how many times you can fall down and keep getting up. How many times people say no, 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 and you keep learning. So when you need encouragement, what I think he's really talking about is the pat on the heads for getting out of bed, the pat on the heads for getting started. Okay, that's table stakes. If you think you're entitled to anything and that requires encouragement, then no, you shouldn't be an entrepreneur. But If encouragement comes from seeing the happy faces on your customers, if encouragement comes from making more money than you did last time, then I don't think he's right at all. Okay? We all need encouragement. In fact, one of the greatest things you can do as an entrepreneur is engage with your community. Misery loves company, and you need to be there for your fellow entrepreneurs in the community so they can be there for you. And I don't mean that in some kumbaya hug a tree way. I mean, if I can't sell my online course, I can call Craig and ask him how he's selling his. Or if I'm having a huge problem because I ran online meetings and now I have to go to Zoom, I can call someone who's done that. This is back to this network effect. Entrepreneurs are very good at turning their passive social network into an activated network, into people referring things to you, into people willing to help you. And it all comes down to building those relationships. And it's about giving first. It's about participating in your community. Even if you haven't started your side hustle yet, go join a Facebook meetup around side hustles. Go join one of Craig's groups. Even if it's not on topic, see what other people are struggling for. In addition to helping you, it'll help normalize it. You won't feel that you're the only stupid one. You'll realize that this is difficult for everyone. And at best, it'll encourage you when you're down. My partner in my last business, the one that did extremely well, we used to take turns complaining. I could complain Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and he got the rest of the days. And we would go off. We would vent because we wouldn't share with our employees. We would just as founders. And having that partner, having that soul to commiserate with and to live off of and to have it's so necessary. So I hope that answers the question.
I think it does. Sometimes people have too many ideas. And, I see this all the time. I've got this and I've got this and I've got this and I've got this. And I could see people going through the process, but they're still going to maybe go through the process 100 different times to try and figure out which one they want to do. How do you get someone like that to focus?
So I think you've actually answered your own question.
Okay.
If you accept that it is not a straight line, that where you start is not where you're going to end because you're going to pivot along the way, then it really doesn't matter where you start because you're always going to start with customers. So you can keep a little black book and write down all your wacky ideas, but you still have to go make a list of the customer segments you're in. You still can only focus on the customer segments you have access to, you have credibility to, the ones that you have that they want to listen to, you have insight. And if those ideas in that black book, no matter how great they are, aren't the customer's problems, then they're non-starters. But what will happen, in my limited experience of 20 years, is that people will eventually pivot into the best idea for them. And I always start the same way. What is your real goal here? Is it to solve online dating, or is it financial freedom for you and your family? Is it to be successful or to have the coolest Twitter app? And if it is to be successful, and if it is to serve a customer base, then you won't really care if it's idea 117 or idea 63, because it's not the idea that matters. It's the solution and the customer that you're building it for that matters. And so have all these great ideas, make a huge list. Then start at step one. Who is your customer? What customer segments do you know? Then go ask them what their problems are. See if any of those line up with your list. They may or they may not. Often I find the best ideas do line up that way. They are something you know about, something you know before other people, something that you have credibility about. And the other ones are a little more off the beaten path. So I say have all those ideas. Just start and then pivot like hell.
A good answer. We have another question here from the chat room. How important is the mailing list in running a business? And how do you start one from scratch?
Okay. So the mailing list itself is of no importance. What the mailing list represents is really what we're talking about. When people talk about a mailing list, they're talking about a group of potential customers they can sell, or a subset of that, people who've already bought, or a subset of that, people who've bought more than once. And the reason it's important is because you want a business that's not one and done, that has an ability to keep selling things. So if you're a hairdresser, people come back for a haircut because their hair grows out. If you do a good job, they'll come back, right? If you sell shoes, maybe they buy more shoes from you, maybe they don't. But the idea of a customer list is that your customers are your greatest asset. They're the ones you can do customer discovery on. They're the ones who will forgive you when the product is ugly like sin, but 10 times better than anything else in the market. They're the ones that will tweet. They're the ones who will help you by telling their friends. So it's less about the customer list as a physical or digital document, and it's more about what it represents, the ability to get to individuals whose feedback can help you be more successful. How do you build that? Oh, well, I'd have to talk all about lead magnets and sales funnels, and really my partner Shari is the genius when it comes to that. But to build a mailing list, you have to enter into a social contract with an individual. You have to give them something, and in return, they give you their email. So the easiest way is, are you interested in learning how to start a startup? Click here, and I'll send you my report. And then to get the report, I get your email, and then I make you agree that I can market to you. And so you end up giving away something that's valuable, but really is just a taster, a credential. If you like that, wait till you see what I can do for you. And there's a million versions of that. Facebook lets you post your pictures of cats in return for setting ads against you. That's a social contract. So when you create a mailing list, and you ask me, how do I start that? Where do I start? You start with a value transfer. What am I giving them and what am I asking for? Craig will gladly take your email address, and in return, he'll keep you apprised of all the awesome events in the city. And he'll give you 10% off the cost, right? There's an exchange. You're not just sneaking around like a hacker from overseas stealing email addresses, okay? The mailing list is just the score. I have 10,000 people. That's 10,000 opportunities to collaborate.
Yeah, and there's so many ways to gather it, and in so many ways to communicate with your audience. You just got to start collecting them in whatever CRM you want to use so that you can communicate with them. That's great advice. How do you deal with, another question from the audience here, lack of discipline and becoming more organized, managing your time better as an entrepreneur? Do you have any tips for that?
Oh, do I ever. My ADHD made it very hard for me to become disciplined. So in addition to medication and meditation, I've had to learn how to become very structured and compartmentalized. So the best thing I can do is tell you to read a book called Getting Things Done, or GTD, and that's the Silicon Valley idea of gating your ideas and creating priorities. But I can't answer in 5 minutes what's in that book, Getting Things Done. But the truth is that discipline comes from accountability. And so if you want to be more disciplined, join an entrepreneurship group that meets every week and updates each other. Take someone's money so that they meet with you weekly to tell you you're not working fast enough. Have a business partner so that when you commit to doing something, they hold you accountable. No one's going to chase after you like your mother did in grade 3. If you don't want to be a success, there's nothing anyone else can do about it. So you need to, and this is my final word on it, you need to invest in yourself. You need to learn the discipline of starting your day off early in the morning, creating a list of to-dos, prioritizing it. I use these tools every day to ensure I get through. At the end of the day, I go through the list and I see what got moved forward to the day after, and I see what I accomplished. But there are patterns that you can adopt, and all you need to do is pick one and start. And the one I recommend is Getting Things Done, or the GTD method.
Speaking of books, the next question is, what books for entrepreneurs would you recommend? Have you got your favorite title that you could share with us? And I'm sure this is a chance for...
I'd of course recommend my own books, but that would just be very entrepreneurial. Brad Feldman, my mentor, wrote a book called Startup Opportunities. And what was happening is Brad is a multi-billionaire in the US. He was behind Guitar Hero and Fitbit and a whole bunch of other successful companies, the 3D printer maker market. But we had the same problem. People would come up to us and pitch, and all my dragons and sharks said the same thing. I'm in the bathroom and people start pitching me their idea. And we feel bad. because how can I possibly do a service to you that respects all the hours you've put into your business in the washroom for 1 minute while I'm on my way back to my table? So Brad and I realized that we needed something more. So what we did was we wrote a book to help entrepreneurs with that question. Is my opportunity good? What can I do to make my opportunity better? And what do I do if it's not good? And we called it Startup Opportunities, how to know when to quit your day job. So I would recommend that. That's the orange book. It's my only bestseller on Amazon. I think it's for sale at a discount. Every year, my publisher, Inc. Magazine, they put out the best columns under the title Wise Words. You can find that as well. But the books that I like, the books that I worship, if you will, Eric Ries's Lean Startup is a great start. Peter Thiel's 0 to 1 is a great start. Steve Blank's The 4 Epiphanies on the Way to Success are great starts. And then there's some old school favorites, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, if you want to know the meaning of life. And these are the books that I think are fundamental in any entrepreneur's journey.
Sorry, I was making notes on all those books for later. I was writing them all down. The next question here is, if you're moving to a new place, country, and you don't know the place or many people, where do you start? Or does that matter anymore, regardless of area or country or culture, when it comes to starting a business?
There are different business cultures. Israel is more entrepreneurial than Canada. But you know what? Every country is a population that's distributed unevenly, so you can't do that. The bigger question is very similar to, I don't have any connections, I don't know anyone, where do I start? Which we talked about earlier. So I'm going to return there. Get engaged. Give first. Show people that one day you want them to help you by helping them first. You don't know anyone? Volunteer at the local startup chapter. 180 cities this year will have something called Startup Weekend, where people show up on Friday and by Sunday, they have the beginning of a startup. And it's all random and amazing. It's a 72-hour journey that is exhausting and rewarding. But you do that for a startup weekend, you'll have friends by the end of it. So I think you do have to make an effort. You know, I spent time in Tel Aviv when I was teaching at Tel Aviv University, and I joined Techstars Tel Aviv, right? So I went and I mentored 1 day a week because I wanted to understand Israeli entrepreneurship better. I wasn't asking them for anything before I was giving something first. So I guess it all comes back to this social contract. You want people to be there for you. You don't have connections. You want a better social network that you can activate and monetize. Give first. Engage with your community.
Okay, we've got a long one here. I'm trying to dissect it for you. So this person has the website, written 7 do-it-yourself books since 2014, made a couple of videos on YouTube, and they love doing promotion, marketing, and networking, more in the music and entrepreneurial small business industry. Due to some personal stuff, they were off for, looks like, a year and a half or so. Pardon?
What's the question?
The question is, they don't seem to be able to get paid for doing the type of business, network marketing, promo. They have their list, they have organized. She's completely on her own. What advice do you have to make that happen?
So I would suggest you go back a step and you meet with the last 10 people who you feel should have given you money. And you do what's called a customer discovery interview. And you don't go in with any assumptions. Through that process, if you Google customer discovery interview or 100 steps, you'll be able to see this. You will find out what's causing what's happening. My guess, which I can't possibly know about, but I'll give you a guess, is that you have a nice to have, not a must have. And so they would love your help, but they don't have the money to pay for you and they're not willing to borrow to pay for it. So your product isn't inelastic. But it's not me who has that answer. It's the people who shortchanged you, the people who didn't pay you for the valuable service you feel you're giving. But you have to be open to the idea that they may not feel the same way about it. And the way you find out that answer is to stop and to circle back with your customers and start with what we call tabula rasa, or a blank slate, right? What are your biggest problems? What are the things you spend money on? These are all customer discovery. And if you don't hear what you're selling, then you may have to pivot what you're selling, or you may have to find a different model where someone else is getting the value. Maybe it's the record label, or maybe it's the channel you're promoting. But if you're consistently working hard and not getting paid, there's something wrong with that value transfer social contract.
Thank you for that. So my question is, there's a lot of people who don't know actually how to run a business.
Yes.
Should they just start anyway?
Yes.
Or
Yes. Running a business is something you could take in a course. By that, how to sign up for GST and how to keep that. There are many bookkeepers can help you with that. The banks all want to help you with that because they hope if you're billions of dollars, they'll go to their bank. The running of a business, the operational business is more business acumen. And you can learn that. It's not tacit, it's explicit knowledge. Where do I file my taxes? As opposed to how do I find a product that will sell? That side of running a business, you need to engage firsthand in a disciplined process, right? The lean startup methodology, and you learn by doing. People always ask me, I always think it's a rude question. They say, Sean, you're a professor of entrepreneurship, but you can't teach entrepreneurship. So what do you do? And if you want to play a semantic game, I can answer that. You don't teach entrepreneurship, you facilitate the learning of entrepreneurship. But in truth, we create a safe space and then we push our students into that space. They experience it. It's hard. It's upsetting. And we work together with their peers to help them work through that. And so that's why I continually go back to this idea about participating in a network. It doesn't have to be so formal. If you don't know how to run a business and you're talking about where do I file my taxes, that's explicit. You can learn that by looking things up, taking courses. If you want to learn the tacit part, like riding a bike or playing guitar, creating a product of value, then you need to participate in a learning experience, like the 100 Steps to Startup or the new venture creation course at a university. You need to be mentored by someone who's done it before.
how much family support do you need when starting your business? And is it important to include everyone and your kids, whatever, in a discussion when you're starting?
Okay, well, I had my first business at 13. Both of my parents were high school dropouts, and we had entrepreneurship from day one. If I wanted my allowance, I had to come up with ideas for my mother's business. So I believe that your family is your greatest stakeholder, either explicitly because your wife has to pay the rent while you're not getting paid building your company, or implicitly because you're putting her future at risk or his future at risk by doing that. So to me, it's a family affair, right? My sons both know that I'm an entrepreneur. I don't know how much value they've added to my businesses, but they understand, and they both come to meetings, and they both sat in, and one is 7 and one is 4. So I believe in engaging them there. I think that they should see that as a career choice that's optimal, available, and good for them. I think any time that you take entrepreneurship, there is a trade-off being involved, right? Bruce Croxon from the Dragon's Den, I once had the pleasure of interviewing him, and he made a comment I've never forgotten. He said, Sean, work-life balance for an entrepreneur is very different. Work-life balance for an entrepreneur is I work like hell for 10 years, busting my ass to succeed at all costs, and then I sit on a boat in Bahamas for 10 years. I hope that's the way it is for everyone, but I don't think that's necessarily the case. If you choose entrepreneurship as a life, not as a job, then it's not a big deal to pitch in on Saturday or to be up at 3 a.m. because you have to speak to Japan and at the time zones, right? I don't look at entrepreneurship as a job. I look at it as a way of life. I'm an entrepreneur. I've been since I was 13. Yes, I have. I studied engineering, and I have a law degree and a PhD and blah, blah, blah. But I've been an entrepreneur more than anything else. And if someone had to put me in a box after being a good father and being a loving husband, I'd like that to be my box.
So we have one more question here before we wrap it up. How to approach mentor, someone you admire, someone who's successful and is already doing the things you want to achieve in the industry? How do you get support and useful business tips from that person?
It's a great question, and I think it's an important one. My business partner and I just finished interviewing some young people about mentorship and what value it was and how it could play out. I think you have to first accept what I've already said, what Dale Carnegie said 100 years ago. Nobody cares about you. Yes, you saw Kevin O'Leary on the news saying that he wants to work on philanthropy because that provides meaning for his life. But you, he doesn't know you. He doesn't care about you. He's got lots of other causes that are dear to his heart. You can't be entitled for anything. So once you accept that reality, which not everyone can, then the question becomes, what can I exchange with my mentor so that they get value from this? And as someone who mentors a lot of people, right? Mostly it's because I own part of their company. So the better mentorship I do, the better they do, the better I do. But other times it's the two-way street. I enjoy helping people, but I don't enjoy helping people who call me 1,000 times in the middle of the night, who don't do what they say they're going to do, who don't follow up, who arrive late. So if you accept that I owe you nothing, then you have to come up with, what am I trading for? And people who are good mentors, those who have been there, done that, those who have accomplished what you want, who are the only mentors you should allow. Okay? There's something called a coach, and there's nothing wrong with coaches. Not every Olympic coach has won a gold medal, but every gold medal mentor has a gold medal. I can't make that point enough. You can't look to people to mentor you if they've never done it themselves. You can coach them. Listen, accountability, shared knowledge, there's still a lot of value in coaching. But when I call mentor is a very specific term from someone who has accomplished what you're doing. And so if they've already accomplished what you're doing, you've got to ask, what's in it for them? I hope that helps. I hope that's not disappointing. I just think it's my truth.
And I think it's a great distinction between mentors and coaching. Some industries and some people I can mentor, but most people I just coach because I'm not in your industry. I'm not that. I build connections, build this, build that, and push you to those people who can do the mentoring. And it's an important distinction of those things.
100%. It's right up there with the importance to know the difference between a small business and a startup, right? They look similar, but they're not. Both coaches and mentors are valuable. Don't get me wrong. We use them all the time in different functions. But at least know what you need. And you were describing a mentor. Anyway, I've rambled on. Thank you for the opportunity to spend some time together.
Well, one more thing, Sean. You shot us 7 or 8 steps. Can you tell us a little bit more about the 100 steps?
Yeah, for sure. 100 steps to startup is like what you just heard, but over 10 hours. We decided to break the Silicon Valley method of startups into little teeny bite sizes so that those with no more than, say, a high school or a couple of years of university education could get started. It's a series of videos and exercises. Each video explains a topic. Each exercise gets you one step closer to success. It takes you through this whole lean canvas, this agile development. You can do it as often as you like, as fast as you like. You can find out all the information at 100stepstostartup.com. If you want a promo code to get 20% off, just send me an email, which I'll flash at the end, or you can reach out to Craig. But it's a learning program. It's just that not everyone can come to Ryerson, and I don't want to deny people the empowerment that entrepreneurship does. So it's just a path. It's a way to learn from other people instead of having to learn from yourself.
I really appreciate you taking the time, and I'll put the promo code in the chat window, and I'll make sure that
promo code is promo 2021. That promo code again is promo 2021. Thank you, Shari.
And thank you again, Sean, for taking the time today. I know we ran a little late. I appreciate you giving all the advice. That was a great topic and great information today.
It really was my pleasure.